So, ladies and gentlemen, today on Sports File, February 8th, 2020, I will start shoveling 5:30 this morning, and I got this idea while trying to get my wife out for work. I said to myself, well, how do I celebrate? Because I celebrate every time I battle a storm and I get myself to work after shoveling or a close family member. I always celebrate with a cup of coffee or whatever. But today I'm going to celebrate by giving you a podcast maybe not too many sports editors or reporters have really thought about, and it's kind of unique. And I want you to go on Google and YouTube and research a lot of the stuff I'm going to tell you, because each individual one could have their own each individual podcast. Of course, I'm talking about established stars at the tail end of their career going to new teams. NHL, Major League Baseball, NFL, stuff like that. Now, years and years and years ago, there was a famous wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles called Harold Carmichael, who was the probably at the time the biggest athlete, offensive athlete in the NFL. He was a big stalwart for the Eagles, and he eventually decided to end his career. He tried a mini comeback, but with all teams, the Eagles' arch rivals, the Dallas Cowboys. It didn't last very long. I think he only caught a few passes in his comeback, and I think that was the same year where former Edmonton Eskimo stalwart wide receiver Waddell Smith also tried and then a career thing with Dallas as well. So that's pretty weird. But I think the ultimate example, which I never thought in a million years he would end up, when Pete Rose moved from the Phillies to, of all teams, the Montreal Expos. Now, you're saying to yourself, what would Pete would do in relation to his career by going to a unilingual province, unilingual French, to expand his career? Like, it didn't really make any sense. Now I look at the sports cards of I think it's a Donruss card of Rose and Expo uniform. It doesn't really fit, and Major League Baseball is well known for that. You look at Deion Sanders playing for Cincinnati Reds. Doesn't fit at all. You look at Dave Parker, an arch enemy of the Blue Jays in the last great Oakland dynasty of the late '80s, early '90s, ending his career in a Toronto Blue Jay uniform. You got to understand, like, players sometimes of a high level want to continue on, but it really doesn't work out. Like players like Dave Parkey moved through several teams, but to find himself on a kind of the last vestiges of the Toronto losing Blue Jay teams. But he could play the factor, but it didn't work out. But you see how many teams, Freddie Lynn had played with, Gaylord Perry. Vida Blue was moving, for a while back and forth from team to team. It's a very unique situation, because at the end of a career, it's the player that can decide. Some people, they just like being around. You look at Joe Namath playing with the Rams for a little while. That didn't make any sense. Zonka with the Giants. Jerry Rice with the Seattle Seahawks. It's a very unique thing for a sports reporter when you're so used to writing about a player with a certain franchise. Like, for example, Montreal Canadiens, prime example, Steve Shutt with the Kings, Yvon Lambert with Buffalo, Lafleur leaving Montreal and going with the Rangers of all teams, because Rangers were a big rival. Serge Savard with the Winnipeg Jets of all things. So Rick Martin with the Kings as well, but on and on. It's up to a player to determine when their career is done, but it's up to the fans to basically have a chance to say, "Listen, I understand why, but it's still pretty strange." Of course, the strangest one, and a lot of the old people like me, or 55 and over, like to talk about, is Johnny Unitas of all players going to the Chargers for his final season as technically a backup to Dan Fouts. Bizarre. So if you have any comments on players that you felt shouldn't have went to this other team, there's different Toronto Maple Leafs, Bruins, stuff like that. Leave a comment, like or subscribe. I'd like to hear from you, because I may want to expand it on a later column. So in the comments section, please let me know if you have any personal recollections or what do you call comments on some of these shifting. And like I said, Harold Carmichael I completely forgot about that. When he just made the Hall of Fame, I said, another Dallas Cowboy in the Hall of Fame. And my buddy didn't believe me. And I said, listen, he played with Dallas. Sort of like Jackie Smith having his last season with, Dallas, when he never caught a pass in a regular season and was more like a playoff contributor. So on this fine Saturday morning where half of the province got a foot of snow and the other half got 15 centimeters, we wish you well. And as we like to say in Meductic, New Brunswick, keep your stick in the ice. Have a good day. Bye.